when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back to the morning show on Tobago Updates Television. I am Adanna Combie, and we begin conversations this morning with our first guest, and we're speaking with Councilor Orlando Kerr. He is Assistant Secretary in the Division of Education, Research and Technology. We are speaking about an update on the Scarborough Secondary School reopening. Good morning, Mr. Kerr, and welcome.
Hi, good morning to you, and good morning to the rest of Tobago and by extension Trinidad and Tobago and the World Wide Web.
Right.
Good morning.
Thank you. And we're talking about the reopening of Scarborough Secondary School. We know the school had to be out for a while due to the effects from the oil spill that we all know, that we're aware of, that took place here in Tobago a couple of weeks ago. The cleanup has been ongoing. It's still ongoing as we stand. And, you know, of course, there were concerns about the air quality. And so we had to close the school along with the Lambo Anglican Primary School as well. And we saw that the school reopened, or there was a call for the school to be reopened. Two things: we want to know how that went, because we know that there are some conversations happening. We saw circulating a memo from the PTA requesting that the parents keep their children home from school because they had concerns. Tell us a little bit about that situation.
All right, so let me just say from the onset that many things are happening at the same time. This has indeed been a very challenging situation for all concerned, and the Division of Education relies on the information that we are given from the professionals in a situation like this. Because as you can appreciate and understand, that we do not have the expertise at the division, and therefore any decision taken by the Division of Education is taken from advice given to us. So that initially, I think you mentioned that we had to close because of the air quality concern. And constant testing has been done and is being done to monitor the air quality at those two locations. We were given the okay to reopen on Wednesday. And I think that what happened is that they decided that because of due diligence, they were going to do some further analysis by going into the actual plant and doing some further investigations. And as I said, this is not the division, these are the professionals who are managing the situation. The air quality, from what we were told, is good, and it was good yesterday. However, there were concerns about surface coating of the substance, and that is where the decision was taken to do some deep cleaning at the both schools, so that the air quality is good based on the tests that were done. But there is concern about the surfaces, and some of the surfaces may have been coated and so on. And out of an abundance of caution, we have decided that we are going to engage in deep cleaning at both institutions before the students are allowed to return. So that is scheduled to take place before the end of the weekend, and then we intend to do an evaluation again on Sunday, because you may appreciate as well, the situation is very fluid. It changes constantly, and sometimes, we know that the conditions may be a certain way now, and it can potentially change. I think one of the most important things is that the cleanup is constantly taking place. So every single day, there is more and more being done in that regard, and therefore, the likelihood of any drastic changes may be reduced. But I want to be able to understand that this is a very trying time, and it's a difficult time for all of us, because this is something that we, as far as my age, we have never experienced in Tobago before. So it is difficult, but we are managing. We may not get everything right, we may not get everything precise, and that is because, as I said earlier, very often the conditions are changing.
That is right. This is unprecedented time. Something of this magnitude has not happened in Tobago. Now, when we're talking about the air quality test for the layman, and even for myself, I am not a professional at all in this field. I'm very unlearned in this field. And so when you say the air quality test, how is it, or are you able to speak to the areas that have been tested? How is the testing done? Is it a general test, or is it tested in a specific area of concern? How was the test conducted to ensure that the quality of the air is acceptable for, for human respiratory and stuff like that? How was it tested?
I think you're asking me a question that really should be posed to the professionals. But based on what I understand is happening is that what they are testing for is to see if there are any contaminants in the air. And one of the things that you would recognize is that you will get a smell, which does not necessarily mean that there are contaminants in the atmosphere. So I think there's a distinction between that and whether or not there are particulates in the atmosphere that can be harmful to humans and can be detrimental. So based on the tests that we conducted, there aren't any particles in the atmosphere that can be harmful. But however, there is an odor. And one of the things that I said to an individual about 2 days ago, um, we are familiar with very, what should I say, pungent owners. For example, when you have this situation with some seaweed and it begins to rot and so on, it smells really very awful. So that, and it can cause some persons to have an adverse reaction to it just simply by the smell, right? So that sometimes there's a distinction between the odor and whether or not there are actual particles in the atmosphere that can be harmful to you.
Right, and I appreciate that very much, and the fact that the report came in that the air is safe. We will accept that, and we appreciate that the cleanup in the schools are currently undergo. One question I want to find out, though, is how has this impacted teaching and learning at these two schools? I know, of course, we'd have to employ the online version of it, but how has it impacted the teaching learning experience for the teachers and the students as well, even the parents, to make a facilitation for this?
Well, as I said, it's a very difficult time because one day away from school is one day too many. And that we at the division are very concerned, and we have been trying to find alternatives so that the learning loss can be minimized. But the reality is that there is no replacement for children going to school and interacting with their teachers. I mean, and we had that experience during COVID. So that we have been going to the drawing board trying to put things in place, particularly for Scarborough Secondary School. I know that the Standard 5 students at the Lambo Secondary School will house that 2-on-1 building, and that will continue. And the other students, Standard 4 to infants, will be given packages, and some of them will online, so that the teachers there continue to try to do as much as they could. But the reality is that there will be some loss. In terms of Scarborough, there's a concern about the pending SBAs and those things that the reformers will have to be undergoing. So we are trying to, as far as possible, to deal with that situation. But the reality is, and I think that persons are aware in Tobago, because we had a challenge with Scarborough when we had to carry them at the UAI center, that there is no space in Tobago that is large enough to house 800 plus students, and that is the reality. And that we are trying our best to sit with the stakeholders and have discussions in terms of what are the possible ways that we can minimize the impact. But the reality is that we are hoping that sooner rather than later the situation is good enough for them to return to school.
And while we await this situation to resolve, or to get to a place where it's comfortable, it's okay for them to get back to school in their comfortable, usual space for teaching and learning. Remember, we're preparing also for SCA. As you mentioned, there are some SBA time. And so students need to start getting prepared for stuff like that. What are we putting in place for something like this? Was unexpected. Nobody expected this to happen. And so it caught us off guard. Are we trying to put things in place now? You mentioned that there's no space to house 800 plus students, which I agree with you. In the event of a situation like this occurring again, or some type of natural or some sort of unforeseen situation happening, and we have to again upheave these people from these children from their natural learning environment. We have to uproot them and replace them somewhere. Are we considering some space that might be available for them to use in a way where as little disruption as possible without having to trying to figure out, well, what do we do now? Are we going to have a plan for the future in terms of should this happen again? We're going to be ready. We're going to be prepared. So we say, okay, this space is available for them. We can use this in the meantime.
Well, the reality, as I said, is that notwithstanding that we would want to do that, the available resources on the island, are very limited, and that there are only a handful of spaces that might be able to accommodate the number. But even in that situation, when they can accommodate the number, there are other requisites that are important. For example, toilet facilities and lighting and so on. Because in the past we have considered the shore park complex, but then you can appreciate that taking students into that building will require a certain level of monitoring and so on because of the nature of the building, and it's not retrofitted really for classrooms. When you live on a small island, the resources in some instances are limited, and therefore you have to just try to think out of the box and be as creative as possible in terms of dealing with these situations. We are hoping that very soon we will start the building of the new Scarborough Secondary School. But again, when you have natural disasters, you can only react as best as you can under the circumstances, and you try your best, because we have sat at meetings, many meetings, trying to figure out, even before now, as I said, when we had this situation with the roof at Scarborough, in terms of how to treat it and where to put the students and so on. And now we have the UGAT Center that we have a partnership with UV, and we have that space to use, but even that space, as I said, cannot house the entire school. So it is a work in progress. We are open to suggestions at the division. If anyone in Tobago can point us to a space that can accommodate 800 students, we'll be very happy. But we have exhausted the list of buildings that are available, and there's simply none. That is the reality, that can accommodate 800 plus students comfortably in a school setting environment. That is the reality of Ireland. And I am not even sure that is possible in Trinidad as well, right? Because schools are built in a particular way, and most of the buildings that might be able to accommodate the students are simply not retrofitted for school. That's the reality.
I understand and appreciate that very much. And I'm just hoping that the cleanup efforts over the next couple of days, even into the weekend, that they are successful in time for students to head back out to school on Monday morning. This is my hope, and I join with you and I join with all the stakeholders as, we work together to clean up and to ensure that the spaces are safe and comfortable for our children to head back out to school in time. Mr. Kerr, we're going to take a short break and we're going to continue this conversation with you, viewers. We ask that you stay with us as we continue this conversation to get some more information, some more insight, and to understand the position better as we continue speaking with Councilor Orlando Kerr. So we invite you right now to share the live. Share the live, share the live. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show on Tobago Updates Television. It's now 7:24 a.m. Yes, 7:24 a.m. So if you're heading to work for 8 a.m., you have a little time to get there. Remember to be safe on the nation's roads. We continue conversations with Councilor Orlando Kerr. He's the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Education, Research and Technology. And we are talking about the update of the Scarborough Secondary School reopening and, general cleanup in the area in terms of getting our students ready to go back out to school. And we spoke earlier about cleaning up of these two schools who are affected primarily by the oil spill. If you haven't heard about the oil spill yet happening in Tobago, well, we just want to bring you up to date. There was an oil spill and it caused major disruption on the island of Tobago in the last couple of weeks, and we're doing pretty well. Mr. Kerr, tell me, how is in terms of the general cleanup with all the stakeholders coming on board and even the call for volunteers to come and assist? How is that going, and where are we? Can you speak to where we are right now with that in general?
Well, again, you're asking me questions that are a bit out of my purview, because as far as we are aware, And because we have been getting briefings, but remember the entire executive council is not at all those briefings, and things are proceeding nicely. There are some challenges in some of the areas that were difficult for them to reach, but I understand that they are making steady progress in those areas. So that things are coming along slowly but surely, right? And I know that a lot of work is being done, and persons are really out there simply turning night into day, as we say in Tobago, to try to get the situation under control.
That's right. And of course, we see the community spirit there in Tobago, people coming out to help. On the onset, there were a lot of persons showing concern and the volunteers coming out to assist. So I want to say thank you, Tobago, for coming out to assist. I even want to say thank you to the persons who had genuine concerns, who caused us to think deep and, to come up with solutions at the last moment. So I want to say thank you to everybody, of course. Mr. Kerr, we're going to switch a little bit. We want to talk about, as we prepare these students to get back into school, and as general school population is there in school, we're dealing with a lot of what we call violence in school. We're talking about misbehavior of students in school. We're talking about aggression and aggressive behavior among students in schools that sometimes even cause our teachers to be on edge and not know how to respond to these situations. What is your take on this, and what is the division putting in place or looking to put in place to intercept these kinds of behaviors and happenings in our schools in Tobago?
Well, let me say from the onset that it is a cause for concern, grave concern, because we have never before seen this level of violence at our institutions. I might say that it is not localized to Tobago, and in a real sense, it is not as bad as yet, and therefore we need to arrest the situation. However, the issue of violence in school is not one that can be treated by the division alone, and that all the stakeholders must be on board. It requires a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to deal with violence at our schools. Just on Tuesday, I was at the Signal Hill Secondary School, where they had the town hall, for wanting of a better word, to discuss the situation at that particular school. And one of the things that came out at that town hall is that many things are being done at that school. However, there is still the prevalence of bullying and violence. And one of the things that was really, really very comforting to all concerned is that many parents were there to be a part of the solution. And we had many stakeholders. We had the TTPS, we had Dr. Hanif Benjamin, we had even politicians, so there were many persons coming together to try to figure out what are the best strategies that we can use, because the reality is that many of these children are acting out because of various circumstances. Sometimes it might be in the home setting, sometimes it might be other reasons why they are acting out, and we have to try to find ways to deal with that. But the Division of Education, we are committed to working with all the stakeholders so that we can, as best as possible, deal with the situation at all schools. That is the best I can say, because it really is something that we have to work together. Education is everybody's business, and this crime and violence is everybody's business.
Of course it is. And of course, we have to continue conversations. I know you said that there was a meeting a town hall on Tuesday at the school, at the Signal Hill Secondary School. And as you mentioned also earlier, that is not isolated to Tobago, not isolated to one specific school, but it is happening in Tobago, in our Tobago space with our Tobago students. And so we need to, of course, put things in place. And you mentioned that stakeholders are coming on board. What is the frequency of meetings and collaborations and strategies amongst the stakeholders to put programs or projects or initiatives in place to ensure that our students are otherwise occupied, or that they're emotional or mental, or whatever the needs that they might have, or the things that they are challenged or struggling with can be attended to? What is the frequency, or how do we plan to move forward? Because it can't be a one-off meeting. It cannot be a reaction to a situation. It must be ongoing. It must be something that we continue to ensure that we can, sort of intervene in the situation, and rather have it be proactive rather than reactive.
Well, at the level of the division, I can say that we have already, even before the issue at Signal Hill, started to put things in place. And we work along with other divisions such as health, wellness, and social protection. Right? Many meetings have been had. As a matter of fact, as I said earlier, we have Mr. Hanif Benjamin, who is a clinical psychologist, who is on board with the division, who has been giving us a lot of guidance, because we have been dealing with, as I said, quite a few instances of violence at our schools and so on. So that we have been looking at it. We have been, again, engaging the professionals in terms of how we go forward. And outside of the professionals, we have been collaborating with the TTPS, not in terms of a strong arm approach, but in terms of how we can work together to deal with crime. So we have been having quite a lot of meetings. And I can admit that we have not had as many meetings with the parents at the schools and so on. And I think that is something that, based on what came out of Signal Hill, that I think that we needed to do. But let me add that the meeting at Signal Hill was not organized by the division, and I want to commend the principal and the staff and the parents of Signal Hill seeing the need and taking that initiative to organize that meeting, because sometimes it is not necessarily for the division to do, but sometimes it's better organized when the persons who are impacted, actually take the bull by the horns and be proactive, as you said, and organize in that kind of way because of what is happening at that particular institution. I mean, we are seeing that, it was really a very good initiative. I felt that the evening was well spent, and a lot came out at that meeting. And as I said earlier, I want to really commend the principal and staff at that school for organizing.
I also want to commend the principal and the staff at that school as well. And I want to join with you, and I want to join with the stakeholders who are already on board. And I want to make a call and a plea to corporate Tobago to come on board, because it is not a one-man approach. One man cannot fix this. We all have to join hands together to ensure we provide the necessary support, not only to the students who are, dealing with traumatic situations, but we also want to provide support to our teachers. We want to provide support, to all who are affected as well, and not just, it might not necessarily be just the students who are immediately or directly affected by a situation, but there are other children in the school who also experience trauma as a result of these happenings and occurrences. So I want to join with you, Mr. Kerr. I want to join with the Division of Education. I want to join with the stakeholders who are already on board and call for corporate Tobago to come on board. This is our future generation. This is the generation that will run things in Tobago coming up. And we really want to preserve our generation. We really want to create, safe spaces in Tobago. And the simple suggestion is to ensure we have projects and initiatives running in every community across Tobago. Make sure we have something that will appeal to every single young person in every community, be it sport, be it cooking, be it mixology, be it pan, whatever it is. Let us try to come up with strategies. Let us try to come up with projects and initiatives and programs that will attract our young people and keep them off the street. The other thing I want to talk about as I'm speaking about this is, Mr. Kerr, is, we have this culture now that they call Trinidad music. We have to find alternatives. What is your take on this? We have to find alternatives.
But before I go to that, it's funny that you spoke about finding ways to deal with crime, and I would invite the public to tune in to the sitting today, because the motion speaks to that, and we will be having candid discussions today, discussions, put it mildly, at the Assembly Legislature today to deal with the issue of crime, and how can we, as an island, basically, do things that will prevent, for wanting of a better word, persons from going in that direction. So it will be interesting to me. So persons can tune into that. But in terms of the Trinidad music, I'm a dinosaur, so my views on that will be probably heavily weighted in a particular direction. And I can say personally, this is my personal view, I don't listen to it at all. It's not inspiring to me in any way. But then I came from a different generation. And the concern that I have is that while we as adults or we who came from a particular generation, they feel that way, the reality is that a lot of our young persons are gravitating towards it. A lot of our young persons are being influenced by it, and that is the concern. So that um, I can't say what will be the way forward, whether it's to ban the music on the airwaves, to ban the music totally. I know some of the small islands have indicated that these artists cannot perform on the island and so on. But I can say that we have to find alternatives that will be even more attractive to our young folk so that they will not gravitate towards this kind of music.
Of course, because at the end of the day, what we want is safety. We want everybody to live at peace. We want everybody to enjoy beautiful Tobago. You know, we just want to live comfortably in our spaces, in our homes. We don't want to send our children to school and have a report saying, come and collect your child because XYZ took place, you know, and so we just want to create these kind of spaces. Mr. Kerr, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on this morning, for being so candid in your responses, for being so transparent, for, you know, telling us exactly what is happening at the Scarborough Secondary School, what is happening in our schools, and also for bringing that level of reassurance and comfort to our students and our parents and our general Tobago community in terms of getting our students back to school, hopefully by Monday, with the cleanup efforts that are taking place, you know, over the weekend to ensure that the spaces are clean and acceptable by all who have to use, the teachers, the students, and the parents, for that level of comfort. Thank you so much. In closing, is there anything that you want to speak to or to address or to inform our public of?
Just to simply say that education is everybody's business. And I understand that the PT would have put out a notice saying that I have no challenges with the saying that if parents are not comfortable not sending their children to school, but I'm very concerned about the part that they're saying that the division is disrespectful to them, because this is not about egos. This is simply about us working together for the benefit of our students. And the reality is that we have engaged the PTA in meetings that the PTA really would not normally be engaged in, because we wanted to give them information. And I'm a person who normally speaks very plain that, you know, it's not about fighting and it's not about turf. It is about us working together, right? And the reality is that we are being advised by the professionals, and that is the best that we can do. We are not professionals in our own right, and we wait for updates, we wait for advice, we wait for, you know, what we should do next. Simple. And, you know, so that it's not a fight. And I get the impression and I understand that they felt a little bit peeved about the fact that the notice was sent out, and there are circumstances that cause that, and I would not want to say, but, you know, it is that many of the officers of the Division of Education are heavily involved in other things, and it is not always to call a meeting and so on. And the correct channels of communication is not through the PTA, and that is the reality. So that to feel slighted, they don't have to feel slighted. We have given them a seat at the table, but to use the word disrespect because they were not called to a meeting before the notice was sent out, I think that that word really got under my skin, because the reality is that it is not a fight. It's not a fight. We are all concerned about our children, right? And the division is trying its very best, even with the limited resources that we have, to ensure to minimize the effects of this on our students. So therefore, we want to work together. So communication doesn't always go the way you like it, but we don't have to fight about it. I have a serious problem with fighting and egos and persons thinking that, you know, it's not about that. It's about our students, and as I said, it's not about fighting with anybody.
Okay, we're
And
going to
we don't
leave it.
want to fight,
We're
right?
going to leave it
So
there for now. You know, I really appreciate the conversation this morning. And parents, we are aware the general public of Tobago, we are aware that the cleanup is taking place at these schools, and we are hoping to have it done by Sunday afternoon so that we would get some information as to what is happening come Monday morning. Thank you so much, Councilor Orlando Kerr, for coming on this morning. We were talking about, the effects of the oil spill on our schools, the fact that Scarborough Secondary School and Lambo Anglican Primary School were also closed, and now, the cleanup is taking place there, and we're hoping to have our children back out. In the meantime, teaching and learning has been taking place. They have not been missing out too much. I mean, of course, there will be some misses because of the situation, but packages have been sent to the students, and they have been doing what they need to do in preparation for the SCA exams and the SBAs as well. And we want to thank you so much for coming up with ways to ensure that the teaching and learning continues, and to ensure that our students are comfortable, our teachers are comfortable, and our parents at the end of the day are comfortable to send their children back out to school. Thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go for a short break before we continue conversations in studio with our guest. And of course, before we go for this break, we want to invite you to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be back.